Show me your moves.
And good evening, all you lovely cyberpunk dystopians, and welcome to another episode of Geeklife, your source for all the nerdy news you need to know. If you're new to the show, we're a 2.5-hour mashup of all the pop culture news you know and love. We talk about TV, movies, video games, and anything that makes us nerds feel like a day-drunk middle-aged woman listening to Lizzo. I am your host, the Dodd, the streamer this podcast needs, but not the one it deserves. And joining me today is a man who's sitting on a binder full of base set first edition cards. Comrade Kev is here to flex with that Charizard. How are you doing today, Comrade?
Doing fantastic, Dodd. Just sitting here and trying to get all these things appraised, but more to come on that later. It's a process.
Yeah. I've added a couple to my collection. Actually, hold on. Before I add this, we'll talk about this in just a second. We do also have the Disco Discord DJ herself is also here with us. Ramen the Warrior Princess. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Dodson. Thanks for asking. It's beautiful evening.
I've got so much to talk about. Even in this, like our little just getting to like acquainted segment here, because Bronwyn, you've had a hell of a week. But Kev, you flexed on us last time, and I've actually invested in the Pokemon card game. Hold on, watch this.
Oh my God! It's going back to the show.
We got base set Alakazam.
Oh shit!
And that's a second edition Alakazam because he only came out in the second edition. And then we got Snorlax as well, Hollow Jungle Rare. So
nice.
Boom. Yeah.
How did you come across those?
By their power combined, they are about $70.
Very nice.
So yeah,
very nice.
You inspired me. But Bronwyn, you had a very interesting week. Tell us just a little bit about your week. You met Gal Gadot and Hans Zimmer.
Please tell us.
Yes, I want details.
Yeah, it was great. I can't give out too many details just because of the secrecy on set and all of that, but it was a great experience. You should be excited for some stuff coming up with the new Wonder Woman movie, and I'm really excited I get to attend the premiere virtually. So that's pretty
cool.
But they're both really amazing to work with, and it was a cool experience for sure. I'm excited for the movie.
Oh my gosh. To
She's
be in your
modest.
shoes. Yes. Yes. Very, very modestly. But she signed some NDAs, so let's not go too far.
That's true.
Especially because we've got such a big show planned today. But before we get started, a quick reminder to everyone that if you like what you hear or see tonight on the show, feel free to follow us at Geek Life Live on any of our social medias. We're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitch, obviously, and Spotify. We now also have a Discord. I'll drop a link here in a second that you're more than welcome to invite or join. We're the Nerd Herd, it's our group of followers and a bunch of content creators as well, just trying to support each other and, bring a lot of attention to your content and help us, make our content greater. So if you're interested in joining that, I'll be dropping some links here in a second in the Discord. But you can also follow any of us on any of our personal social medias. You can find me at Roosebane on Twitter and Twitch. Bron, where can they find you?
You can find me at Space Nymph on Instagram and on Twitch. Check out my Instagram. I just posted some aerial silk work, so that might be fun for you to watch.
Yeah. And then Kev, where can they find you?
Kevin Todd Jr. across all socials and Toddly Awesome on Twitch.
There you go. So we don't have much time, but we've got so much to talk about. So Kev, hit us with that rundown.
Got it, Dodd. So something has broken the sound barrier and is making its way to Netflix. Disney unveils its roadmap for content world domination, and in the world of movies, you guessed it, more Disney. Also, many Hollywood execs are upset that things are changing because money reasons. And are we being cyberpunked? That was really cringy to say, but I really had to do it. Got to go for that low-hanging fruit. Plus, we got more coverage for the VGAs. Then you want to stick around after the break because we're diving deep into the world of Hollywood and trying to figure out who's disrupting the status quo and why it's got all these rich people up in arms. And then hold on to your cybernetic butts. We're counting down the top 10 cyberpunk icons in this week's Top Zen. But first, the news. Dodd, what's going on in the world of TV?
The first thing we got to talk about in the world of TV is Netflix announcing yet another series. In collaboration with Sega, WildBrain, and Man of Action Entertainment, a new Sonic the Hedgehog series has been announced for Netflix. Right now, it's unclear if Sonic is... if the Sonic pictured is indicative of the Speedy Blue Hedgehog, we will see in the series, but we do know that they are opting for a largely classic and faithful depiction of the Sega character. So, Kev, are you disappointed that we're not going to see Abomination Sonic from that one trailer ever again? Or do you think they'll sneak him into the new Netflix series somewhere? You know?
No, I don't think we need to see Sonic with teeth ever again. That's. No, we're I think we're past that now. Let's keep Sonic.
Right. I think if I ever saw that thing actually in public, like it wouldn't be a cutesy story. I'd be like,
yeah, absolutely, of course. Like, why did he have teeth?
Of it. I don't know.
Why did he have teeth? Like, there are certain things that don't need to be realistic. Like, for instance, a sentient talking blue hedgehog. There's a reason why that thing is make believe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They still kept his eyes separate, which is a weird thing, because if you look at Sonic's eyes, a lot of times they're connected in the middle, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever, unless you're just a lazy artist. But at least they kept him separate in the movie. Hopefully they'll keep him separate in the Netflix series. But honestly, Netflix at this point is just a basket case. Some of the stuff they do is really, really great. Other things get canceled first season, period.
That's true.
So...
But they keep churning it out.
They keep on churning it out. They certainly do. But speaking of churning it out, the big news in TV this week, and one of the big news in TV this week, or in movies this week as well, is the Disney's investors meeting. Bronwyn, you've taken a look at some of the stories that were announced at the Disney's investors meeting. Tell us a little bit about what went on there, and kind of walk us through everything going on with that.
All right, there's a lot to cover here, so I'll just go ahead and dive right in. Multiple Star Wars series were announced, including Ashoka, Lando, Obi-Wan, and more. Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are developing 2 new spin-off series based on the timeline of The Mandalorian. Star Wars Rangers of the New Republic and Star Wars Ashoka will allow the story of The Mandalorian to be more fully explored. Trailers for Loki, What If, Captain Falcon, WandaVision, and The Winter Soldier were also released. The Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special is set to be the first MCU holiday film and will debut in 2022. Armor Wars will feature Don Cheadle as War Machine and show what happens when Tony Stark's tech falls into the wrong hands. And lastly, the Hulk, Moon Knight, and Hawkeye are to be released exclusively to Disney+. So that's what's going on in TV from this investors meeting reveal. But I can dive right into movies unless you guys have any...
No. There's so much to talk about in TV. Hold on. Pump the brakes. Okay, first off, you got an Ashoka Tano series here, which is something that we've been wanting. They premiered that first episode, but honestly, I think that was already in the works. They knew how well Rosario Dawson was going to do. They put that episode on there so that when we heard that announcement, we would get super duper stoked for this. So I think that was really cool. Some of the trailers, I watched the trailers for Loki, What If, and Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I didn't get a chance, I think, to watch the WandaVision trailer. Did any of you guys get a chance to check out any of those?
No, I just have the taste we got earlier in the year.
Yeah, and then, Kev, did you get a chance to check out any of the new ones from the investors meeting, or particularly of those trailers?
I just saw the images, but I didn't get a chance to sit down and actually watch the trailers. I was caught up with some other trailers from some of the games world, but we'll get into that later. But no, I definitely saw the shit that's coming out, and I'm stoked.
What If looks crazy.
It does.
It's got Peggy Carter as Iron Man, or sorry, as Captain America, or Captain Britain, actually. You've got Black Panther as or T'Challa as Star-Lord and kind of going on Star-Lord's journey and mixing Black Panther and Guardians of the Galaxy. And we know it's Chadwick Boseman's voice, and we know it's his last performance that he was ever alive to do. So it's like all of that in one. And then Don Cheadle's Armors Wars sounds like super duper interesting. We thought Iron Man was dead after, everything that happened in Infinity War, but it seems like his stories are still continuing on. Spoiler alert for those who were, years overdue on the Infinity War ending. My bad. But there's just so much, just even in just the TV outlook here to talk about. What are you most excited about, Kev?
Well, honestly, I didn't even know that thing about T'Challa being Star-Lord, so I'm kind of curious about that. But I'm very excited for all the Star Wars spin-offs. Like, it's funny, the new Disney generation, the movies, you can say what you want to argue about them, whether or not, but I don't think anyone can argue about the spin-offs being kind of fantastic. Even Solo, as much crap as that movie's gotten, I actually kind of liked it. But, like Rogue One, Mandalorian,
and Mandalorian. That's what you got. Yeah. Good. You got Rogue One and Mandalorian. The whole, I would say, 7, 8, and 9, absolute garbage. But Brahman, are there any of these TV stories that kind of particularly stand out to you?
Yeah, I'm excited for WandaVision.
Yeah.
And definitely going to check out that trailer soon because just from what they had released earlier got me really stoked for what's going to happen, like what's going to come with that show.
Yeah, that one looks really interesting too with the whole like 1950s vibe thing they have going on. And like the first episode was supposedly shot in black and white in front of a live audience. And we've talked about it previously on other shows before, but that's definitely one I'm stoked up for sure. But there's much more in the Disney's investors meeting, particularly in the world of movies. Tell us a little bit about what's going on in the world of movies as far as the Disney's investors meeting goes.
All right, guys. Captain Marvel 2 is currently in production, and Miss Marvel will join Captain Marvel in the film. Captain Marvel 2 debuts in theaters November 11th, 2022. Thor: Love and Thunder will also release in theaters May 2022, and Blade is in pre-production. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is in development. Black Panther 2 will debut in theaters July 8th, 2022, and according to Disney, honoring Chadwick Boseman's legacy and portrayal of T'Challa, Marvel Studios will not recast the character, but will explore the world of Wakanda and the rich characters introduced in the first film. Fantastic Four will be directed by John Watts. The next Star Wars feature film will be Rogue Squadron and be directed by Patty Jenkins. The film will premiere Christmas 2023. Disney's animation also had a ton of announcements, from Zootopia to a new series based on Princess and the Frog. So that's what's going on in the world of Disney movies.
Yeah, there's a hell of a whole lot there too. I mean, Patty Jenkins getting her own Star Wars movie. Fuck yes. This is gonna be fantastic. I'm super excited to see what she does with it. Rogue One was absolutely fantastic. It's probably the best Star Wars film that's existed with outside of it. So I think that they're kind of still at least trying to go in the same direction there. I don't know. If you watch Rogue One, all the good characters die, so I don't know really where you go from there unless you're doing like a prequel thing, which all those characters meet in that movie, so it doesn't really work. So I don't know how you necessarily do that. But we got a confirmation on Fantastic Four as well, which is something we were rumored to hearing about a little while ago, which I found pretty interesting. Any of these particularly that you're excited for, Kev?
Yeah, for sure. Rogue Squadron, mostly because I love playing those games as a kid. So I'm super stoked for that. I'm curious, for sure, Black Panther 2. And then Fantastic Four, I hope it does well. Because I had such high hopes for the last one because it had such a stellar cast and it was just god awful. And again, it wasn't the acting or anything; it was written poorly. So yeah, those are the ones. And I'm curious. We're not going to go there because we don't have a ton of time. But Princess and the Frog, I hope they just do better. I'm just going to say that. Just going to say that. Less frog, more princess. That's all I'm going to say.
Anything in the movies department you're really stoked for, Bron?
Yeah, well, I'm excited to see what happens with Fantastic Four, just because it's been kind of like a running joke this whole every time they have to remake it to keep the license for it. It's just like, oh, how much worse can it get? But we'll see. Maybe this is gonna flip the script, and this is gonna be the movie that changes it and gets people excited. I'm also really pumped for Black Panther 2. Also, Thor. Like, give me more Thor. I'm always
Well, Thor: Love and Thunder. This is the one where Jane Foster takes the hammer. So we'll see if um, shoot, what's her name? Natalie Portman. Can step into the role. But one we really glossed over though is Captain Marvel and having Miss Marvel joining the cast. We're gonna get Kamala Khan in Captain Marvel 2. That's a really interesting kind of direction that they're going with, and I guess that explains Kamala Khan's casting and what she's going to be doing in it. We thought we might be seeing a Disney Plus series, but it looks like she's going to be at least starting her adventure in Captain Marvel 2. So that's really interesting to see.
Yeah.
I'm
ready for all of it. I'm ready for all of it. Like, there's so much now. Like, I'm overwhelmed with just the future.
Yeah, the Disney's investor meeting overall was kind of like drinking out of a fire hose. Like, we're still not we still haven't covered all of the stories that are there. I mean, there's still going to be a couple of them that we'll pick up later on in some other episodes because they'll be relevant to what's coming on. But these are just some of the big highlights here. I mean, like one of the other things is Kang the Conqueror. We were right. Yeah, it's going to be played by the same guy that's in what's the HBO series? Lovecraft Country.
Yes.
I can't remember the name of the actor off the top of my head, but that same actor is going to be taking the place of the new big bad, the new Thanos, as Kang the Conqueror. And we see a statue of Kang the Conqueror in the Loki trailer as well. So just tons and tons and tons of info that I think we're going to be digesting for a couple of weeks, to be honest.
Disney's doing a great job with the MCU without jumping the shark per se. Like, just keeping it alive without kind of, again, beating the dead horse or whatever analogy you want to use. I think they're doing great. So I'm kind of looking forward to it.
Me too.
Yeah.
Well, moving right along in other movie news, the Demon Slayer creator gets swindled. Yes, the Demon Slayer creator I don't know if you guys have been paying attention, but the Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie, has broken nearly all box office records in Japan and is close to overtaking Spirited Away as the highest grossing film in the region, including live action movies. But despite how profitable the film has been, it seems the original manga creator, forgive me, but I'm going to probably mess this up, Koyaru Gortuj won't be seeing he won't be seeing any of the 30 billion yen that its box office gross has actually made. Although he might take some back on the home release. The box office revenue for Demon Slayer will be split between the creator, the publisher, and the production committee. On the surface, it doesn't look good for Go True, but basically the long end of the story is he sold the upfront rights to it for them to make the movie beforehand, and the original creator is going to probably make out with about 4 million yen off of this movie that's made over 30 billion yen in box office gross. So it's definitely a disappointing day if you happen to be a manga writer for an incredibly successful movie that could possibly take over Spirited Away as the highest grossing film in the region. You're only getting 4 million yen because you sold the rights when you were a new writer and didn't have very much serialized work. So definitely a rough one for the Demon Slayer creator.
That sucks.
Yeah, Brahman, what do you think? He did sell the rights up front to the movie producer. Is this on him, or should there be a kickback to kind of really reimburse the artist for the source material?
I think that there should be, but I don't think that there could be because of being legally binding. the only thing we can hope is that maybe this gives him the kind of exposure that it's not fair. It's not
We'll
fair.
pay that exposure.
Yeah, no, that's the only, I guess the only good side. But I think that people just need to be really careful with their intellectual property. Kind of go into things with, instead of selling it, maybe think of a percentage or something. But it's hard, like you said, when he's a new writer and that he probably didn't anticipate this would make this much money.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's true. And that's the thing, right? Like everyone's always like, well, you signed the contract. Well, yeah, but there's obviously in context, situations change, like
Right.
you said, Bron, he wasn't expecting this movie to make damn near $287 million. And I'm sure the executives weren't either. They just got lucky, So in some cases, someone's like, well, why didn't he just hold out? Well, I mean, have you tried being a writer? It doesn't pay well unless you're getting paid, in which in this case, he's not really getting paid anyway. So and when you're a desperate, starving artist, you gotta pay bills and feed yourself. And sometimes you're left without a choice. So yeah, and a lot of times the executives within the entertainment industry will take advantage of that.
They certainly will. They certainly will. But those same execs do not like it when the system takes advantage of them. And that's what many of them are feeling with the HBO decision that came out recently. A lot of millionaires seem to be upset about it. Kev, you have a little bit more on this story. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with some of these Hollywood execs.
Yes, Todd. Unfortunately, some of them won't be able to fuel up their private jets and yachts. No, I'm just kidding. I digress. The decision to release the 17 films onto HBO Max in 2021, while perhaps well-intentioned, is causing a rift between filmmakers and the major distributor behind it. Here's a skinny on what everyone is upset about. Warner Brothers had movies, TV shows, everything. COVID happened, pandemic, and they said no one's going to theaters. We're releasing everything to HBO Max. While this feels like a win, like for us, not everyone is seeing it that way. According to insider info from The Hollywood Reporter, the decision was not discussed with the people who made the films where the media was putting on HBO Max, and were only informed after it was already made. Chris Nolan rips HBO a new one, saying some of the industry's biggest filmmakers and most important movie stars went to bed the night before thinking they were working for the greatest movie studio, and woke up to find out they were working for the worst streaming service. James Gunn is also unhappy. Gal Gadot still got her money, so did Patty Jenkins. I could go on and on about the story, but that's what the deep dive is for. Dodd, Bron, is it time for Hollywood to get with the times?
Yeah, I mean, Bron, I'm interested to hear your take on this, especially with Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins still making their money off of a deal with Warner Brothers, especially since you got to experience Gal Gadot this week. What are your general thoughts on this story?
I think that there's just a shift that's having to happen in the world right now when an entire industry has been put to a halt because of the pandemic. So I don't know if this is the right solution, but I think that there had to be some sort of a change, and it's going to have a ripple effect in how films are produced. I think that everything up until this point, how it's changing, seems really radical and unfair to these producers. But I think that going forward, people are going to have this in mind, that they are making content for this platform until there's a resurgence of the film industry the way we knew it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're going to go into a lot more about that in our deep dive, so we'll save them a little bit more digestion on that for later, because we've got to talk about what's going on in the world of video games, particularly the first one. Happy Cyberpunk release, everybody. The game was announced in 2012, okay? We're finally here. But Cyberpunk had a very revealing release, to say the least. I didn't intend for that to rhyme, but it did, so there we go.
I love
anyways, so just to give a little bit of context here, Cyberpunk is huge. Pokimane streamed Cyberpunk for about 30K plus people on Monday, it was on the day before it came out. She obviously got it on an embargo.
Wednesday.
Yes, and over 300K people were watching that stream at the day of its were watching different streamers play Cyberpunk on the day of its release. People are very interested in this game. They want to see more of this game. But it has been notably glitchy on fourth gen consoles, with textures popping in and out. It's common for a new game to be glitchy, so we think this is something that's obviously going to be addressed in the future. But some of the textures and the way they pop in and out, and how quickly or how long it takes for them to adapt, make the game look like you're playing it on N64 at some points in times. But there's one glitch that has been particularly revealing, showing players customized genitals outside of their pants. Obviously, I couldn't show you a picture of this, but I is one on my Twitter if you want to know what it looks like, because I know you're curious. But it basically, yeah, it has your dick hanging out. Cyberpunk has gotten in a bunch of trouble because this has been happening. One, the glitch, obviously, the glitch has nudity elements that can't be streamed. And so content creators that are having their customized genitals hanging on the outside of their pants are now, getting all kinds of flags and warnings from Twitch. Also, there's a bunch of nudity in the game in general, and that stream mode that they talked about adding in there seems not to turn on automatically, and maybe a little bit tricky for some players to get. But for some reason, they've been really getting into a lot of different hot water with, not just Twitch, but Facebook, YouTube, other places where games are streamed as well, just because of the amount of nudity and the nudity glitches out there. But overall, people are having a lot of fun with Cyberpunk. Kev, have you heard anything? Have you seen anything from any of your friends about some of the Cyberpunk gameplay? Have you gotten any reviews about it? You haven't seen too much, have you?
I haven't seen too much, but from what I have seen, it hasn't been great.
Yep.
So I'm waiting out on this game because what everyone's playing now, except for what's on PC, is not the real Cyberpunk. And what I mean by that is the one where all the glitches are happening is happening on the PS4 and Xbox. That game was made for those consoles, however, it doesn't run particularly well on those consoles. It runs fine on the PS5 and Xbox Series X. And it runs great on a PC depending on what your specs are. But again, this game shouldn't have come out. I think what happened was, and again, I'm kind of on both sides where it's like you don't put out an unfinished product, but at the same time, fans were asking for an unfinished product, right? Like they kept complaining and sending death threats. Like if someone's sending me death threats, yeah, I'm like, fine, take the shit. I don't care, right? Like get this off my plate. So it's kind of like it's also on us, the consumer. Like we wanted this so badly, and it came to a point to where it wasn't even done and finished, and you kind of got what we asked for in a way. Like this game was, I don't think people understand how ambitious this game was, and we didn't give CD Projekt Red the sort of confidence and faith that we should have had in them because they've released great games before, and it's not like I don't know. I don't pre-order games anymore because everything's digital. There's no point to it. That's another discussion for another time. Mm-hmm. So there's really no real urgency to have this game out now, other than you're just bored and there's nothing else to do. So, I side more on the developers on this one, ironically enough, because I feel like in a way they were put in a position where they had no choice but to release it. And again, if you don't believe that this game's not finished, then why is there a next-gen version coming out next year?
Yeah, that's true.
How is just back a bit? How is there a nudity glitch? They had to program that.
Yeah. Okay, so the glitch
characters.
Yes, you can customize your genitals on there, but they're not supposed to be something that you could be seen on your character when they're walking out through public. So that's one part of the nudity problem. The other part is there is just nudity in the game in general, and there's supposed to be a stream mode that you can turn on so that when you're streaming, those parts, are like censored or something or whatever the case may be. But a lot of people just haven't turned it on or didn't know, and then all of a sudden they're like, getting a whole bunch of flags from Twitch all at once. Because again, these things. It's to be expected with such a giant launch like this,
right?
That there would be a bunch of these problems.
And it's on 9 different platforms. Like that's pretty unprecedented. And also too, like back to what Braun was saying, and the nudity glitch is weird because like at the same time, they gave you the ability to customize your genitals, and then people are mad because now you can see your genitals. But I understand,
Sure.
and I know I had to make that joke, but I understand like the streaming ramifications for it. But I mean, just like anybody, like the casual Joe, like they get upset now, like, oh, I can see myself. Like, well, I mean, yeah.
Side note, though, the whole concept of being able to edit your genitals in cyberpunk to me is just a fascinating concept, because I was like, at first I was like, oh, why would you include that in a game? And then I thought about it for 20 more seconds. I was like, okay, but like, what could I put on there? Like, could you like an elephant trunk? You know, could you like
It's
put
one of those
tusks?
things that you don't think you
know,
want or need until you actually have it. And you're like,
can I get like a Doc Ock arm coming out
God.
or? So it was just something to think about.
Yeah.
Anyways, Sad Gaming strongly agrees with you, Kev. You guys said, first off, this game shouldn't have come out. It needs about 2 more years. I think simultaneously in the chat. So that was kind of cool to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, moving right along, Nintendo had to cancel a Splatoon stream after its players showed solidarity with the Smash community in the ongoing epic that is Nintendo versus the Smash community. Bronwyn, you got more on the story. Tell us a little bit what's going on here.
All right. Well, to give you a refresher on what's been going on between Nintendo and Smash and this whole free Melee movement that got started, basically the biggest Smash tournament, the Big House, started using a modded version of Melee in order to keep the game going at a competitive level during the pandemic. While Super Smash Bros. Ultimate already has online capacities, an emulator was created by tournament head Slippy, who in the process ripped the original GameCube game to allow competitive Melee players to continue to play in tournaments remotely. This led to the serving of a cease and desist by Nintendo and the cancellation of the tournament and any future ones to come. Fast forward to the cancellation of Splatoon last week. The tournament that started, or this whole debacle started with a tweet from the gamer who goes by the name of Slimy that said, the Splatoon community in support of the Smash community has 30% of the top teams in this weekend's SPL2 NA Open with team names in support of Melee and Smash. These team names included hashtag Free Melee, Melee Nation, and hashtag Free Melee 227. Nintendo hasn't officially stated why they canceled the event, but on the tournament's official Discord, one of the representatives stated, due to unexpected executional challenges, we had to forego a live stream for the tournament's finale. Slimy, along with many other players, are unconvinced, pointing to their support of the Melee community as the reason for the cancellation. Dodson, why do you think Nintendo put a stop to this competition?
I mean, I think it's obvious that Nintendo put a stop to this competition because they don't like how they stood with the Smash community or the Melee community. And I think that when it comes to the Melee community, it's a double-edged sword. One, you've got people love Smash Brothers Melee. It's hands down voted as one of the best of the Smash Brothers games. I think I would probably agree with that. And it's one of my all-time favorite games. It's a very nostalgic game for a lot of people. And it does have its own active community of people that do play it and people that do stream it and people that do compete in it. And so, the community has been so, on its own and not run by Nintendo or had any kind of official reins on it, that there's been a lot of toxic people that join the community and have made that community in some areas, in some places, due to those private tournaments, very, very toxic. And so Nintendo, instead of trying to fix that problem, just distance themselves from that competitive community entirely, and they're stepping in the way of stuff like this, of not allowing people to use modded versions of Melee in order to keep the game competitive. I know that takes a bit of control out of the way for them, but if the company was really structured around trying to give fans the best experience, then they would at least try to bridge the gap there. To still have a community that's active in Melee. I think Nintendo wants to be like, well, we have Ultimate, we have all these other new Smash Brothers games that we do. Why do we have to still kind of continue support for this game? But at the end of the day, like, people still love playing it. And I think that one, I think that's important to recognize, and I think Nintendo should work to facilitate that. So that's why I think they stopped the competition. What do you think, Kev?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they're kind of putting the well, they didn't have anything because they didn't have a choice because, again, essentially everyone was sitting out and competing in a Splatoon tournament. But I think it's a great gesture. It just shows like how impactful these communities are when they come together, how they can even take down like, the big dogs in a way. Like Nintendo is ultimately in charge of these people's careers, and they chose progress and doing what was right over just, continue with the status quo. Yeah. I think back to your point. I think Nintendo should just bite the bullet because they're not really losing anything. Like let these people play the game they love to play. Like, who cares? Like, I get it. Like, yeah, sure, we got to capitalize on every dollar, but is it worth? Like, yes, throw the morals and ethics out of the conversation. We can get into that later. But is it worth paying lawyer fees and going through all this sort of litigation just so people don't play a 15-year-old game at a competitive level? Like, that's silly to me.
Yeah, it is.
And there's no option for online, so it's like it's not like they're like just doing something for the heck of it. It's like they don't have the option to do this. Nintendo doesn't offer the option to do this, so like they're still like showing respect and loving the game, and they want to compete doing it in a way that makes sense in today's world. Like you said, it's not 15 years ago.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Especially because, like, it's not just like they're doing this in like normal time periods. A lot of the reasons behind this are COVID-19 impacted. This is because there's no way to play together in a local tournament where you grab a controller, and to just kind of I don't know. I wish Nintendo has the right to do everything that they're doing. But it doesn't. It's not the most ethical. It's not the best decision, in my opinion. And I think the best decision would be something that would be probably unconventional. So that's why they're probably not doing it.
Yeah, that's true.
Cooler Nintendo, come on.
Right.
For real. But that's not all we got in the video game news, for sure. Because the 2020 Game Awards was this week, and Kev, you've been paying attention to all the big awards and all the big announcements that came out of this. Give us the rundown on what happened with the 2020 Game Awards.
Yeah, holy shit. Well, it's probably going to rub some people the wrong way, but it doesn't matter because the big prize goes to The Last of Us 2 for Game of the Year. In addition to Game of the Year, Naughty Dog's hit sequel won several other big awards throughout the night, including Best Direction, Narrative, Action Adventure Game, Audio Design, and Performance for Laura Bailey. Other big news, love Laura Bailey, by the way. Other big winners were Square Enix's Final Fantasy VII Remake, Best Score in Sound and RPG, Hades, and Best Indie Game. That was Best Score in RPG was Final Fantasy. Best Indie Game and Action Game is Hades. And Among Us took home Best Multiplayer Mobile Game. There were also a fuck ton of announcements. Not going to spend all day on them because we'd be here all night. But big announcements and trailers including Seth Ross coming to Smash, Master Chief in Fortnite, Among Us new map, new trailer for the next Mass Effect project, and Vin Diesel as Monster Hunter. Dinosaur Hunter. Also, the Mass Effect trailer. Holy shit! I might have wept a little bit because if any Mass Effect fans know, it's some pretty the trailer was very telling. We've been suffering for a while.
I wanted to hear your thoughts on it because I know you're such a huge Mass Effect fan, and I saw as soon as that trailer dropped, there was just links all in the Discord chat. Plug our Discord again.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go get that link.
Yeah, please do. But just to go over real quickly, give you the cliff notes. Spoiler alert, it's been over 8 years. I don't care at this point. Apparently, the ending for Mass Effect 3 was a clusterfuck. Shepard dies. Maybe he didn't. Indoctrination theory. Who knows? However, on this trailer, well, apparently in 3, everyone died. We don't know what the fuck happened. But in this trailer, one key character, Liara, they showed her face, and she picked up what looked to be Shepard's armor, a very key and pivotal scene in the last scene of one of the Mass Effect games. So it's a lot to unpack. I am just super excited that 1, they're making a Mass Effect game, and 2, it looks like they're returning to the original trilogy. So it's still surreal to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems pretty surreal. Any big surprises as far as the awards go to you, Bronwyn? I mean, Last of Us Part 2 getting Game of the Year. I think there are some really strong contenders out there for Game of the Year, and I never didn't play Last of Us Part 2, so I can't really give it a full, like rebuttal. But like, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, so I haven't played it. I haven't seen a lot of the gameplay. And what were some of the titles, just so I remember, that were up against it? Like, what would you have gone for?
Well,
I can read them
Kev.
real quick. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other nominees were Animal Crossing, Doom, Final Fantasy VII, Ghost of Tsushima, and Hades.
Gotcha.
I feel like if there's any year for Animal Crossing to get it, it's 2020.
Yeah.
I think that's what I would have guessed. I mean, it was just a part of the beginning of our pandemic, I feel like.
That's true.
That game.
But for me,
that was a whole year in itself.
Yeah, it was. You're right. We're on year 2 of the pandemic, right? Is that how we're at?
I think so.
What is that? Yeah. My game of the year for sure, though, has been Miles Morales. I know I just finished the game today, and you can check out the end of the game on my stream. But anyways, I of all the games I played this year, that hands down has been the funnest one that I've played. I played a lot of Pokemon as well, but that came out in 2019, so that wouldn't count for this year. That's hands down been the best one that I've the funnest game I played. Ghost of Tsushima was pretty fun as well. But and I think that was actually up there nominated as well. So I would have probably leaned that direction too, but Miles Morales, man, the story, the gameplay, the just overall dynamic of the whole game was hands down my 2020 pick for Game of the Year. So
yeah,
for sure. Well, we got even more news in our other section. Marvel Comics bought Alien earlier this year, or sorry, they bought Alien, but they're now just producing the first series. A new Alien series has been announced by Marvel. Earlier this year, Marvel Comics announced that they attained the rights to publish the comics based on the seminal Alien film franchise and its parent Walt Disney Company after the film franchise acquired its parent company, 20th Century Fox. So the synopsis for the new Alien series says the new story will feature a Weyland-Yutani mercenary named Gabriel Cruz as he battles a deadly new breed of xenomorph with the survival of his child hanging in the balance. No stranger to infusing horror with the classic, Marvel storytelling Philip Kennedy Johnson most recently shocked readers in the terrifying Marvel Zombies Resurrection series. So you've got a horror Marvel writer writing a horror Marvel storyline. My question to you, Kev, is: do you think there's a chance that Star-Lord's going to run into a xenomorph anytime soon, at least in the comics?
I hope so. I hope someone does. I'm not sure who I want to run into it because it's a very dark story, right? Like so, and you know, Guardians of the Galaxy is kind of light and irreverent, but who knows? Maybe that'd be a funny sort of twist on it.
Yeah,
I'm curious to see because I remember there was always these sort of like weird kind of crossovers back in like the 90s of like Predator versus Batman or Alien versus Wolverine and random shit like that. So now it feels like it's more official, right? Like they're in the same world and universe.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of excited. I'm more curious to see how they actually.
We don't know. We don't know if this is going to be a conjoined universe. Marvel could do a series completely separate and away from it. So we don't know for sure, but it could be a possibility in the future, I think.
Yeah.
What about you, Brahman? Would you be terrified to see a xenomorph pop up in a Star-Lord comic? Or Guardians of the Galaxy comic? Sorry.
I would think it would be interesting because they're such different vibes. So having that kind of juxtapose, like you can either do like a more serious kind of Guardians of the Galaxy thing, or you can like make the alien thing kind of a little sillier. So I think that would make for some interesting dynamics.
That would be kind of So many possibilities.
So many possibilities. Many possibilities. Also, actual aliens were confirmed. Kev, you got more story, more on this?
Yes, Doug. So a man who worked as Israel's space security chief has released a new book that says aliens are real and Donald Trump knows about it. I'm sorry, it's just so funny to me. According to an NBC report, Haim Eshed, former head of Israel's defense ministry space director, told an Israeli newspaper that Earthlings have been in contact with the Galactic Federation and that there is an underground base in the depths of Mars where there are American astronauts and alien representatives. Eshed said the aliens have been waiting to reveal themselves until humanity is ready to understand them, and that President Donald Trump is aware of this and was asked not to reveal the information in order to prevent mass hysteria. They have been waiting until today for humanity to develop and reach a stage where we will understand in general what space and spaceships are. We don't know what that, anyways. Eshed said, referring to the Galactic Federation. NBC said representatives from the Pentagon declined to comment on the revelations, and NASA said it has yet to find signs of extraterrestrial life. Bron, do you believe? Are you?
Yes, I do.
You want to believe, I should say.
I do believe. I've seen them. They're in the sky flying around.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the crazy thing is, I saw this on NBC. Like, I saw this on like major news outlets. Is the crazy part of it, and they talk about a galactic federation, like a full-on like
Star
whole.
Trek.
Or like the prequel movies in Star Wars, is this how democracy dies, with a thunderous applause?
See, I'm with Bron. I'm on the board that aliens exist train. I just don't believe.
I do. I believe it too.
I just don't believe this guy because it just doesn't. It seems weird. Like I remember reading like they said they signed a contract. Why alien? What the fuck are aliens signing contracts? They're aliens. They don't have to sign contracts.
We're gonna blow up Earth, but we signed a legally binding contract, so
like,
we can no longer do that.
They're worried about subpoenas. Like what the fuck?
But he did point to Trump, which kind of like makes sense because he did put a lot of resources into Space Force, which would make sense.
That's true. That's true.
And there was a part that Trump at one of the rallies he said, he was like. And it just blends in with all the rest of his idiocracy that he spits out. So it we'd catch on to it. But this could mean something in this context. He was in there. He was like, we're going to build the biggest space force for the best defense and offense. And like, no one's like, who are you fighting in space? Like, are you going to fight the fucking Death Star? Like, what's going on? But maybe this Galactic Federation was something that, was a, if that was, see, that's the part that I don't believe about it. Is that Donald Trump knew about it and they've been able to get him to keep a secret on that?
That's
really?
True.
Yeah. Nah, man.
Especially since he lost the election.
Right. He would have been like, fuck Biden, the aliens are real.
Yeah.
Let's start World War III with...
Yeah.
Oh, man. There's too much with that. Anyways, that's about going to do it for our headline section. And we're about to cut to about a 10-minute break. But before we do, we want to say thank you for the follow. I don't think we got anybody new this time, or I didn't see anybody pop in. But Savage Patch Kid is here today, chilling with us. Appreciate that. Sag Gaming has been following along as well. Pretty much like step in toe with Kev's perspective there. We got Littlest Nelly in chat, and we got Gonzo Gone Live, and of course Geeklife sitting there hosting in chat as well. Oh, Fattest Sax is here too. Hey, Fattest Sax. We couldn't call him Fat, right? That's like that would be a weird nickname to do, right?
Yeah.
Call him Sax. Sax
is
best. Yeah. Let's go with Sax.
Sax works.
Hey, Sax works a lot better. Anyways, so thank you guys for hopping in with us, chatting along. So just a reminder, if you guys like anything you hear or see, make sure to drop us a like, drop us a follow. We're on all different social medias, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all the good stuff. And with that, we'll kick it back out, and we'll see you guys in 10.
Giuliani.
We're gonna fight corruption.
And welcome back to Geek Life. We are going into our deep dive now, and tonight we got a very special topic. If you're a Hollywood producer with 3 yachts and truckloads of unspent Batman money, you may think the end times have finally come. For the rest of us, this seems a bit odd because we've been living in the apocalypse since March, and while it is at one of its worst points, while it's by far at one of its worst points, the let them eat cake attitude of the Christopher Nolans of the world have never been more apparent. COVID has shaken the world and shaken the bourgeoisie in a very different way. Tonight, we are bringing out the guillotine and dissecting the issue headfirst. Tonight, we want to explore what happens to the rich when the world gets shaken, and how our favorite icons play by a very different set of rules than the rest of us. To start us off, Christopher Nolan ripped into HBO Max. We talked about this earlier in the show, saying that many famous filmmakers went to bed working for the greatest film studio on the planet to wake up finding themselves working for the world's worst streaming service. Braun, is he right? Does HBO deserve that kind of hate?
I have never heard HBO referred to as the world's worst streaming service. Get off your high horse. I understand that you had the intention of producing films for this big screen and for these fancy releases and big audiences and box office numbers, but come on, the world needs to adapt, and HBO, from their original content to the curated content that they purchase, has always been top notch. I think that it's a little bit of an overreaction.
Little bit. Kev, you feel the same?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just, like you said, just rich people having their pockets hurt a little bit, or maybe not even, I don't know. No one likes the status quo or to change the status quo, especially when it's going good for you, because, the future is uncertain, so.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I mean, for the average moviegoer, the HBO Max move is a win. Right. Does this victory for moviegoers outweigh the cost to film producers? And if this trajectory continues, what will happen with film producers?
Yeah. So I think it's just going to have to be a shift. I think, much like, and I'll get into this again later, I'll use as another reference, much like how the music industry had to sort of shift and readjust itself to just, the prevalence of the internet. I think producers, in a way, are going to have to figure out a way to, I guess, maximize the majority of the resources in which they can use to, still deliver stellar products and intellectual properties. I think in a way, there's going to be some sort of price modeling change. For instance, they could do a thing where what Disney was doing, a movie would come straight to HBO Max and it's $30 to watch it, opening day or whatever. But I think this just seems like the tides are shifting in a way where, like we talked about before, but yes, sure, the pandemic really killed the movie theater, but it had been dying for a while. Not that many people were going to the movie theaters anymore.
Yeah, this is true. But Braun, you're in and out of the film industry. I mean, you've been working you're in the middle of this right now. How have you felt anything with this big HBO Max as far as the shift in the kind of attitudes in the film industry?
Not a specific shift with this story, but I'm just thinking of kind of how productions will change, because not only are they anticipated to be making less with the release of these movies on streaming sites, but having COVID added to the budgets is ridiculous. People are spending so much more money to have to produce to produce films. It's exorbitant, and not only are they spending all this money for the COVID compliance officers that need to be present on site, to the nurses testing every other day, every crew member. There's also the extra time that you have to take breaks every so often to disinfect the entire studio. It adds time, it adds money, and then to see this happening, well, then your movie might not make X amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
I think there really needs to be a shift, smaller production, smaller crews, different like maybe like indie movies will come to the rise. Maybe things like animation will come to the rise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that the animation is a good point there. I think that's something you probably could do mostly from home. From what I mean, from what I understand, but I'm not someone that works in the animation industry, so I can't say that for sure. The kind of question I guess that begs to ask then, would it be better for everybody involved, for viewers and producers, if we just waited to revitalize the entertainment industry after COVID is over, or is that asking too much of fans and franchises to keep everything on hold?
I think it's asking a lot for both parties, for like the people consuming it and also the people making it. Like that's their livelihood. Those are their jobs. Like,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of what like the talk is on set. It's like follow these guidelines, do what you're supposed to do, like take this seriously, because if we take all these guidelines seriously, that's protecting our jobs.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
For real, Kev, do you feel the same?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit unrealistic. I mean, it's unrealistic in the sense of twofold, where it's like, there is a pandemic still happening, but at the same time, the show must go on, as you would say. I think there still is a demand for it too, right? Like people still want to be entertained. They want to watch their favorite shows, their favorite movies and stuff. So I think as long as there's still an audience or a market for it, then they're still going to keep producing it regardless of how they got to release it.
Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, we've been figuring out ways to make content completely digitally, but ours is a very different format, and ours is something that we can do just over video call. We actually made it that way, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But I don't know. One of the most let them eat cake-esque stories from this week has to be Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins making away with record deals from the WB. They're still going to make their cash regardless of their success here. Yet they, yes, they were really unlucky with their release timing, but millions of people have lost their jobs and essentially been told tough shit. Is given the situation that we're all in with this pandemic, is that situation fair for Patty Jenkins and Wonder Woman to still, make just as much as if the movie was still successful?
No, I don't think it's ever fair, right? But that's just the way our society works. Unfortunately, there's like this hierarchy of things, and prioritize starting at the top, and then everyone else towards the end be damned. I don't think, to answer your question, I don't think it's fair. No, of course not. But it is. This is how these business operates, and it's not just entertainment industry. It's really any sort of any multi-million or billionaire corporation or company or platform, industry, whatever. I just think that it really comes down to the people who are okay making this is another topic for another day, but you're making you're making millions and millions of dollars, and then there's people who can't feed themselves or whatever, and they're not getting paid at all. But again, then you value which job is more important, whatever. That again, this is another topic for another day. To answer your question, is the situation fair? I'd say no, but I see why it happens.
Yeah. Brahman, do you feel any differently as someone who works in the entertainment industry, and you still got to get by too, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just a little lost here. So the people who made the movie though, like everyone got paid making that movie. It's not like they're not getting.
No, that's what we're saying. That they are getting paid, but we have, we're in a situation across the country right now where there's millions of people who have lost their jobs from no fault of their own and been told, kind of, well, tough luck. Like, given the situation with everybody in, is it fair that Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins are going to still make away with as much money as if their movie was successful?
But what's to say it's not successful just because it's not having that big box office release? Because it still could be a huge success in terms of people watching it. And I think that it also has to be looked at through the lens of, well, when this movie was in production, like that was a pre-COVID world. When they signed their contracts, that was a pre-COVID world. Right. I think that shifting is going to be happening with like the movies produced like after that. So I don't really see it as completely unfair.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Hey, that's why we have diverse opinions on the show. And we want to get different perspectives. I thought you might have an interesting perspective on that, or particularly.
Yeah.
Should those in the industry, and particularly on this subject, because I was thinking about you this week, when we saw, I saw on like on the news there was that woman, and I don't know if you saw it or not, Brahman, but I think she was in California and she was like having her restaurant was being shut down, and then right next to her was a tent like cafeteria for like a movie set that was going on.
I have some about this. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay. So my big question is, should the entertainment industry be treated as essential workers? And if I think that it is not a question of if they should be, it's more of a question of at what point are they? Because like if the pandemic goes on for, especially in a situation where we don't know how long this whole thing is going to last, at some point, I feel like you need the orchestra playing on the Titanic. The people on that ship to me had a very essential worker type of vibe. There has to be something that keeps us sane. There has to be something that keeps us connected. And I think that there is a part of that to me is just as essential as maybe a liquor store is. So I think that there is an argument there. But Brahman, I know you got big feelings on this, so lay it on me.
So I saw that video and I was just like rolling my eyes the whole time. I thought it was completely ridiculous. I do not side with her at all because I know the kind of regulations that are in place on sets. If every single person going to a restaurant had to follow the same guidelines that they do at a set, then restaurants could be open. It is insanely strict. You cannot enter the building until you have a negative COVID test that's taken right there. It's not like bring in your test results. It's like we're doing the rapid test. They have the guidelines for the quality of it. They are seriously there are officers there that enforce these rules, and that doesn't happen at a restaurant. So I don't think it could. I don't think that they could be looked at next to each other and compared. I think
I think that's a great point. I mean, I didn't think about the fact that it is on a movie set. It's very much like a place of employment kind of situation that where even more so in places of employment, because like you think I don't think that they're testing every single person that walks in and out of a meatpacking plant. Obviously not, right?
No, they're not.
And so it kind of the entertainment industry, because it is so well funded, has the opportunity to probably shell out those tests and still be able to produce stuff. So to kind of root that back to like my original question, should the entertainment industry be treated as essential workers in your opinion, Brahman?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. So. What about you, Jake? Kev? Sorry. So I used to throw it to Jake.
I think when you use the word essential workers, I think in this case, I think as long as what Brian mentioned earlier, I think as long as they're putting all the guidelines in place to make sure that everything is copacetic, if you will, in terms of being COVID safe, then yeah, I think it's fine. Dude, is it necessarily essential? No, but I think being essential means that you don't need to follow those same sort of guidelines. Like you don't need to have a COVID test every day per se, unless it's available to you, because you are an essential worker, right? Like think of the people who work at a grocery store. They're not getting tested every day, but they're able to come to work because we need to go to the grocery stores. I don't think the entertainment industry should be treated as essential workers, but if they're able to, like you said, to shovel out the funds in order to make sure everything is COVID safe, then yeah, they should be able to operate as at their discretion.
Yeah, like some kind of a different kind of distinction, like semi-essential or something like that, where you can work if you're going to shell out the money to pay for all the testing and stuff like that.
And I think there's this weird misconception that someone or like the government or somebody is allowing the entertainment industry to like continue operating. They're getting funds and stuff like that. That's not how it's happening. Like these people, they just have money. They're rich, so they can afford to be able to sort of continue to operate. It's not like they're getting something more per se as opposed to someone else. And again, whether or not it's fair, that's another topic for another day. It's just like Bron mentioned, they're actually paying to be able to do this and operate during this pandemic.
Yeah, for sure. the issue here is one more of is the issue here one more of the rich in their own sense of entitlement, or does our culture inherently have a toxic relationship with celebrities and the entertainment industry in general? You know, sometimes, some of these situations are a bit hypocritical, especially, like Gal Gadot, Patty Jenkins, you can kind of, for reasons that we discussed earlier, you could probably put them aside in a different situation. But people like Christopher Nolan, people like James Gunn, who are highly, highly successful and are probably doing a lot better than the rest of us. Are the ones that are throwing they're the ones that are throwing the biggest tantrum right now.
Yeah.
You know, is that because of just celebrities and their own entitlement, or is that because we have a toxic relationship with celebrities and entertainment in general?
I think it's a mix of both. I think there's always been this sort of weird idolizing of and fantastical thinking of sort of celebrities or famous people or historical icons or figures throughout history and pop culture, whatever. But again, and again, I could go on for forever about this. In a nutshell, these people are on these platforms and these pedestals because the public puts them there, right? And and people get mad at it, but that's people are choosing who they want to sort of entertain them. Like no one, and it's weird. I don't know how it happens per se. Sometimes it's luck. Sometimes there's some influencing going on, and sometimes it's just, again, it's a popularity. It's the world's biggest popularity contest, and in a way, yes, it can be this sort of, I'd say toxic in a sense where you sort of develop a disassociation with reality in a way, and it works on both sides. And like the average Joe like me, where we have this weird sort of dissociation with how my life is any different than like say like a Christopher Nolan's, and then like Christopher Nolan's being sort of disillusioned to the fact of what's going on in the world around them. Like yeah, there is a pandemic and we all have to adjust, right? Like everyone's making adjustments. And I think I would say yes to both sides, right? It's like, yes, there is a toxic relationship with celebrities and entertainment, but also I think there's this sort of entitlement within celebrities, which again, we kind of give them in a way, where they feel like they should be able to continue to do any things that they're able to do because they have the resources, money, or whatever, or have been doing it forever. And again, in a way, and I hate to sound kind of cliche and cringy, but we are in a way all in this together, right? Like there's a reason, like you kind of see how fragile this sort of house of cards, which is our civilization, can crumble, right? One thing goes wrong, and then boom, a whole entire industry collapses, like the movie theater industry. So. And I think no one knows what the fuck to do because this is kind of unprecedented for most of us being alive.
For real.
I agree with that completely. And I think that there is this entitlement because there needs to be that attitude of being on the same team because everyone's had to pivot. This is not what anybody this year expected. And I don't think that your movies going to HBO is like the biggest tragedy of 2020. Like you box office releases, like you've had your big blockbuster success, calm down, like a little bit of integrity right now. I think that it's a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head, Brian. It's like, it's not like, yes, I'm sorry your movies aren't going to box offices anymore. Like I'm sorry that was the worst thing that happened to you this year.
Right. For real. With all that said, you should be rewarded for your work, especially your art. We also talked earlier about the creator of Demon Slayer getting swindled out of a lot of money because he was young, he was a new writer, he didn't know what was going on there. It was kind of reminiscent of you talk about Dave Chappelle and his fight with Netflix recently. Directors like Patty Jenkins have a lot on the line going into a movie like Wonder Woman and the success that she wants there. And Brahman, I know that you made the point earlier that we don't necessarily know the success of the movie yet, but as far as the box office goes, we do know that it's going to be, by our normal metric, it will likely do a lot worse than the previous ones because it's not releasing in a pandemic. By other metrics, it might be super successful. We don't know. How is this any different than Christopher Nolan and James Gunn's complaints.
How is what every different? Sorry, I got lost in the question.
How are any of the situations where people are kind of like rightfully upset because their work, their art is being either monetized greatly or usually monetized against their will, and just not cutting their fair share. How is that different than the situations like Christopher Nolan and James Gunn and their complaints?
I just think maybe the parameters surrounding it is what's different. Maybe like people's expectations and intentions going into something. Like with Christopher Nolan and James Gunn, it's like they had this certain expectation of this pre-pandemic world, and now that it's in that post world, it's like they're not able to shift that expectation. And in a sense with what's his name? The
James
film.
Gunn?
No, the writer of of Demon Slayer. But anyway,
it's very long and difficult to pronounce.
So in his case, it's kind of like he didn't have that expectation of the amount of success that the film would have, which is what stifled him in the end. So I think it's just people's expectations is kind of what is where I can see that common thread coming. I don't know. What about you, Kevin?
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm torn because on one hand, you have a revenue stream essentially being cut entirely. On the other hand, I don't think there's much in the way of money being made at the box office because vaccine or not, COVID is still here and it's still uncertain for how long. Maybe Warner Brothers is looking to capitalize on an inevitable space, i.e. straight to streaming, and that's probably why they went ahead and just did this, right? They're like, we're going to be proactive and innovative. I feel like they're doing what they feel is the best business decision and going into a space that they just see as inevitable. And, anytime there's a disruption, especially when it comes to money, when there's a disruption of the status quo, everyone gets up in arms, i.e. Uber, Airbnb, WeWork, marijuana, electric cars, the list goes on and on. To me, this reminds me very much in a way of the music industry, when Napster came along and went through a shift, essentially where we got to a point today where album sales are pretty much irrelevant. And it makes sense with the omnipresent accessibility that is the internet that Hollywood would have to shift to.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, I think that will about wrap it up for our deep dive segment. We're rolling right along into our top Zen, which is all about Cyberpunk, because Cyberpunk 2077 is here. So fans have been throwing hours upon hours of their life away at exploring the brand new world and everything it has to offer. And while there's never been a game quite like Cyberpunk 2077, there have been many Cyberpunk icons that pave the way for this gaming icon. But first, what is Cyberpunk? Cyberpunk is a subgenre of science fiction in a dystopian, futuristic setting that tends to focus on a combination of low-life and high-tech, featuring advanced technological and scientific achievements, such as artificial intelligence and cybernetics, juxtaposed with a degree of breakdown or radical change in the social order. Most cyberpunk is rooted in new wave science fiction. The new wave science fiction movement of the 1960s and 70s, when writers like Philip K. Dick and Roger Zelazny and John Bruner and J.G. Ballard and Philip Jose Farmer and Harlan Ellison examined the impact of drug culture, technology, and the sexual revolution while avoiding the utopian tendencies of earlier science fiction. Not everything in the future is supposed to look perfect, so they've tried to create a fantasy and stories around a future that didn't necessarily look perfect. Tonight we're going to focus on these graphic reflections of capitalism and corporatization by categorically ranking these icons based on their success. I'm sure no one will find that ironic. But number 10 on our countdown is Mass Effect. And of course, we've got to pass that off to Kev to tell him why Mass Effect is a cyberpunk icon.
Yeah, so I was torn because I really wanted this to get on the list, and I found a way to make it. So initially, if you play the first game, it doesn't seem when you initially start, it doesn't seem like it's too cyberpunky, right? Like it's basically this galactic federation of aliens with humanity being sort of infant stage of this, i.e., I guess this is kind of just art reflecting reality. Who knows? But eventually, as you play the game, you realize things are a little bit more dystopian than you had realized. There are various sort of hidden plot lines and plot twists along the way, i.e. Saren being the sort of conduit for a super intelligent artificial mega race of destructive ship species robot squid things that have to wipe out organic life every 50,000 years, to the second one being a much darker and deeper tale of as Shepard going essentially to the bad guy side or anti-hero side, in which you are working with Cerberus for, again, a common goal in order to stop the Reapers. It's a little bit more cyberpunky in this aspect, in a sense that, yes, of course, Mass Effect is teeming with various technological advancements, cybernetic upgrades, and everything. And then along the way, you are sort of helping to make the galaxy a more harmonious and balanced place by bringing species together, or not. Again, your choice, depends how you play. I usually go the Paragon route, but ultimately, the genre still stands. I think it holds up as a pretty good cyberpunk genre. Again, you have all the technological advancements with the Omni tool, the biotic upgrades, and then again with the underlying doom and threat of a dystopian and apocalyptic sort of cataclysm within the plot itself. And who knows, looking at the trailer, looks like this might be even more cyberpunk, being that it's set after the third one, which means the Reapers have just basically all but devastated everything. So I think it's going more in that direction. Dodd, Bron, what do you guys think? Have you guys ever had a chance to sit down and spend 1 million hours on Mass Effect like I have?
So I played a little Mass Effect before, but I most of my Mass Effect experience comes from watching my roommate in college play Mass Effect, because he went through all 3 of them and certainly invested more of into his social life in Mass Effect than he did his social life in outside of college. But it was really a very interesting story, and there were definitely characters that I could recognize as cyberpunk for sure, and especially with more of the storyline context and everything like that. I think it does hit a lot of those, checks a lot of those boxes for sure. Yeah. Ron, what about you? What do you think?
I haven't gotten the chance to play, but excited to maybe try out the newer game. Or what console is this one for?
It's on all of them now. It used to be just Xbox, but it's on everything.
Played it.
Yeah.
You need to check out the remastered version that they're going to put with all 3 of them together, right? Isn't that coming out soon? Yeah.
Hell yeah, it is. I'd wait to play that, Bron.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Definitely need to check that one out. But Bron, you got number 9 on our list, which is also an unconventional pick for a cyberpunk list, but it does have a ton of cyberpunk influences. Number 9 on our list is Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, Mad Max Fury Road. So in this, I'll give you a brief little synopsis. The world has become a desert wasteland, and civilization has collapsed as a result of wars and dwindling resources. Max, played by Tom Hardy, is a survivor haunted by visions of the past. He's captured by the War Boys, the army of the tyrannical, immortal Joe, and taken to Joe's citadel. There, Max is imprisoned and used as a blood bag. Meanwhile, Furiosa, one of Joe's lieutenants, is sent in her armored war rig to collect gasoline and ammunition. When she diverts course, Joe realizes that his 5 wives are missing and are fleeing with her. Joe leads his army in pursuit of Furiosa. Throughout this journey, Furiosa forms an unlikely alliance with Max after he escapes his imprisonment. What makes Max a cyberpunk icon, you might ask? Well, his ability to survive and adapt to this post-apocalyptic wasteland goes unmatched. He is a man of few words, but what he lacks in verbal communication, he makes up for in brute force and combat skills. In this world, the juxtaposition of desolation combined with technologies, particularly when it comes to vehicles, puts it on the map within the cyberpunk zeitgeist. In Cyberpunk 2077, the game even includes a Mad Max Easter egg as a nod to this iconic film. To coincide with the 5th anniversary of Fury Road, CD Projekt Red came out with an in-game vehicle, the Reaver, a custom-built Wraith Gang vehicle based on the Quadra Type 66 car. Dodd, how would you build your car if you were in the Wasteland?
Well, I'd probably build it a lot like I did in the Mad Max video game, because that's one of the games that I did sink a lot of hours into.
Me too.
That was a lot of fun. And yeah, I'd probably go with a muscle car outrigged with a bunch of different, like those big cattle guard things with spikes on the front, and those ridiculous mud tires. I mean, if we're talking about Mad Max universe, you need the biggest, the baddest, and the meanest looking. So I'd try to go with a combination of that. That's what I'd think. What about you, Kev?
Yeah, I agree. I'm all here for Mad Max cars. I definitely want one. But I did not know that CD Projekt Red did. Oh, I'm sorry, they didn't do. Okay, I thought they made the Mad Max game. I was gonna say that's.
Oh no, they just had a reference to.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, number 8 on our countdown, moving right along, is Ex Machina. Outside of it being the name of the cyberpunk version of D&D, Ex Machina is the perfect cyberpunk. The name comes from the term, well, it's not the perfect cyberpunk, but the name comes from the term Deus Ex Machina, which, for those of you who don't know, means an unexpected power or event saving from a seemingly hopeless situation. So, in other words, the Eagles in Mordor, pretty much. The phrase has been used for a lot of cyberpunk titles, and the phrase itself certainly has a very cyberpunk vibe. In the film, Caleb Smith, a programmer and for a huge internet company, wins a contest that enables him to spend a week at the private estate of Nathan Bateman, played by Oscar Isaac, and his firm's brilliant CEO. When he arrives, Caleb learns that he has been chosen to be the human component of a Turing test to determine the capabilities and consciousness of Ava, played by Alicia Vikander. A beautiful robot. However, it soon becomes evident that Ava is far more self-aware and deceptive than either man imagined. Well, Ex Machina has a lot of cyberpunk elements. It's still lacking a little bit of the whole breakdown or radical change in social order department. Obviously, the AI kind of getting a life of its own and doing that is certainly there, but all the characters do seem pretty well throughout the movie, and there's not really that economic juxtaposition. But outside of that, it's still a major cyberpunk icon for its visuals, the way it lays things out, and the mixture of technology in a kind of uncertain reality. Braun, how important do you think it is to have that juxtaposition in a cyberpunk story?
I think it's really important, because putting those sort of things side by side makes them stand out. And I feel like it also, like, that punk aspect of it, that grittiness, is sort of seen in those moments when you're taking two things that don't necessarily go together and then highlighting them.
Yeah, for sure. Kev, you feel the same?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to have this sort of, I think the whole premise of cyberpunk in a nutshell, if I could say, is like either lo-fi tech or super high tech with like grunge elements, like deep, like God. I don't want to say any spoilers, but we'll get to that later. But something on that aspect. It has to be one of the other. Like you said, it has to be a good balance or harmony or juxtaposition between like technology and just dystopian, some elements of that. I don't know.
For sure. And especially on the technology element, number 7 on your countdown gets a little bit closer to that mark, which is Tron Legacy. Tell us why Tron Legacy makes the countdown, Bronwyn.
All right, let's get into Tron Legacy. And this 2010 sequel to the original 1982 Tron, the son of a virtual world designer goes looking for his father and ends up inside the digital world that his father designed. He meets his father's corrupted creation and a unique ally who was born inside of this digital world. Well, the storyline and character developments is a little lacking. The world building, aesthetics, and atmosphere are what put this movie on the list. The film literally takes place inside of a video game. Can you get any more cyberpunk than that? And it's not just where it takes place, but how they pull you into that world, the mix of electric blue and black, the innovation, sleek design of the weapons, vehicles, and costumes all have this hyper techy vibe to them. The score for the film alone, all produced by Daft Punk, sets the tone for the world. How often have I put on this soundtrack driving at night, imagining that I'm riding a light cycle? More times than you think. Don, what comes to mind when you think of Tron?
Well, I mean, now it makes me think of riding light cycles, listening to, lo-fi cyber beats. But it has a lot of kind of vaporwave cyberpunk aspects to it, and I think that's why it's a little bit higher on the list, because it doesn't necessarily. I think like Ex Machina, it kind of it doesn't necessarily have that juxtaposition economically as much as some of the other ones on our countdown. But outside of that, it really hits every other mark. I mean, the advances in technology and where those lead and how the problems that they create with it, and the kind of the future is not as bright as it seems kind of element, I think is very, very cyberpunk, and definitely kind of goes along with it, for sure. What do you think, Kev?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it does have sort of the elements of it where, yes, the high tech part is kind of sort of outweighed by some of the other top sin candidates on the list. But I think you have sort of the underlying threat of this huge corporation sort of getting ready to essentially control the world with this software that's getting ready to come out. And the only way that he can kind of save it is the former founder of the company's son, who had went missing in the video game, basically tries to stop them and using technology along the way. So yeah, it kind of checks the boxes.
Yeah. I think that maybe what you can see as that juxtaposition could be like this real life person, this like character being thrown into the world. Maybe he's like the low tech, like in this high tech.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, there is a little bit of a juxtaposition there for sure. Yeah.
Also, the music, one of my favorite soundtracks. Braun was also doing that many nights.
For real. Well, number 6 in our countdown is one of Ridley Scott's best, actually, the Alien franchise. Tell us a little bit why the Alien franchise is a cyberpunk icon, Kev.
Yes, the 1979 science fiction horror film directed by Ridley Scott. Brilliant, man. And written by Dan O'Bannon, based on the story by O'Bannon and Ronald Shusett, follows the crew of the commercial space tug Nostromo, who encounter the eponymous alien, an aggressive and deadly extraterrestrial set loose on the ship. The film stars Tom Skerritt, Sigourney Weaver, amongst many others, and is really an iconic sort of franchise and figure, the xenomorph being a figure with not just within cyberpunk, but within science fiction as well. But the reason it makes our cyberpunk list is because you have sort of, while yes, there isn't like a corporation or some sort of organization that's kind of controlling the world, and you have to use technology in a way. There is one that this film is kind of noted with using sort of lo-fi tech to tell a futuristic story. And I guess that looming threat is sort of the alien. And then also along the way within the franchise itself, you get to like a point where there's Prometheus and there's this corporation trying to sort of profit off of, finding another world, yada, yada, yada. So there's a mix of elements here and there. And then even in Aliens 2, there's sort of this, I think Aliens 2 out of all the movies, if you will, in the franchise is probably the most cyberpunk. It's super 80s. It's super grungy. Again, it's utilizing a lot of the lo-fi tech. It's a military-led organization, but they're over their heads, and there's some sort of rifts that go on because there's conflict of interest. So I think from an aesthetic point, if we don't even get to the plot lines too heavily, I think Alien has to make this list, and I'm glad it's here. What do you think, Bron?
Yeah, I think so. I just can't get that flamethrower out of my head.
Right? Yeah.
I've been playing around with the flamethrower a little bit this year, and every time I do, I feel like Sigourney Weaver. So
Yeah, that and when she's in the giant mech suit fighting the alien queen.
yeah,
that was what I was thinking. Like when I first saw this one on the list, I was kind of scratching my head. I was like, well, is that really cyberpunk or is that sci-fi? But like that whole fight scene with Sigourney Weaver, I could definitely classify that as cyberpunk. You know, a lot of the androids that they used in Alien, like. You know, like you can look at androids like Data, and you could kind of say like he's a lot of this. He kind of looks the same, but like when they actually dissect the android in Alien, and you go inside of him, that to me, I think, has very much that cyberpunk feel. And it was again, it was one of those movies, a classic horror movie that came out right in that time where this genre was really really taking off, and regardless of whether or not it is cyberpunk or not, it definitely shaped cyberpunk stuff going forward.
1000%.
So that's what I
also
said
side
about
note,
Alien.
the trailer for Alien, the original trailer, probably one of the greatest movie trailers of all time. If you're a cinephile or curious of some nostalgia, I'd watch that trailer because it still holds up.
I'll check it out. I haven't seen the trailer.
Yeah.
I'll check that out for sure.
Way after it came out. So
yeah. Same here.
Well, number 5 in our countdown is getting a bit more cyberpunk now. We're getting another video game on the countdown, Watch Dogs Legions. Watch Dogs Legions is a game we haven't talked much about here on the show, but it's certainly been making its rounds on Twitch as one of the best ways to keep someone cyberpunking until the real one dropped this week. Watch Dogs Legions borrowed a lot of aspects from cyberpunk. With a much more grounded approach to them. It's important to mention that the Watch Dogs Legions does take place in the present, but they have a lot of access to technology that doesn't exist yet. So it's kind of like a not so distant future kind of feel. And because of that, it just is able to the idea of, you know, recruiting a group of folks to help you take down these big techno corporations through hacking different softwares and taking advantage of over corporatization, I think is definitely inherently cyberpunk when it comes to a game. Kev, what do you think? Does the time period make Watch Dogs more or less cyberpunk?
I think it makes it cyberpunk. I think in general if we look at the definition, like using technologies to sort of undermine a corporation or some sort of nefarious organization, and that's literally the plot of every single Watch Dogs game. Now I haven't played the new one. I plan on doing it on my new Xbox Series X, hopefully. It's again. I think it for sure. It's a cyberpunk game and franchise. What about you, Brian?
So yeah, I haven't played this, but like even looking at that title, Watch Dogs, I'm like,
right, yeah,
you should definitely check it out on Twitch. I haven't played it either. I've just seen a lot of gameplay on Twitch about it. And
has anyone played the second one?
I dropped off after the first Watch Dogs. I'll be honest with you on that one.
Okay. Because understandable, but the second one's really good. And there's a character in the game, you can look him up now. He's not the main character. He's more of a side character, but he is super cyberpunk. Yeah.
For sure. I bet.
Yeah, I mean, Wrench. That's his name. Wrench. Sorry.
Sounds cyberpunk. Cyberpunk for sure. For sure. Well, now we're getting into the big icons here, though, because once you get past 5 on the list, you get into the huge staples, the ones that you got that have to make the list here. So number 4 on the list is Total Recall. Tell us why Total Recall makes the list, Bron.
All right, let's go back in time to one of the OGs that makes it on this list, Total Recall, in 1990, sci-fi action film starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. Total Recall, more like total mindfuck. The film tells the story of a construction worker who suddenly finds himself embroiled in espionage on Mars and unable to determine if the experiences are real or the result of memory implants. This world is a mix of high tech that was especially groundbreaking in the 90s, and even looking back today holds that status. Let's just look at some of this technology. It includes the recall machine itself, the thing that is implanting these memories, masks that alter appearances, terraforming devices, nasal-based GPS, hover cars, robocops, and cell phones implanted into the skin. The full-body X-ray machines shown in the film seemed really futuristic at the time, but they are now a part of our normal life. Going into the threat of this film as well, trying to overthrow that corruption and the government, that's puts it on this list. But I think, yeah, so that, and combined with this technologies, with the grittiness of this world, like it's very futuristic, but also very gritty. Kevin, if you could choose any of the technology from this movie to make it into the mainstream per se, what would you choose? What do you want to see?
I don't even know if I want to use it. I just want to see how
it's just you get a COVID test, and that's
How the government tracks you. Stick that nasal GPS.
But no, this is for sure is a classic. I'm glad it's on here. And the remake that came out a few years ago wasn't that bad either. I think they did a pretty good job, especially paying homage to the original. So.
Oh, I'm seeing now that the remake is what is pictured here, and that is.
Yeah.
Me too.
No, that's okay. I mean, they're based. They did a pretty good job. It's essentially, and someone's probably gonna. I don't care. It's essentially the same movie. It's just it looks better, I guess.
It was the same movie, and I almost made the image like both of them side by side because, I mean, it's kind of debatable which one's better. I would probably argue the original is better than this one, but I wanted to make sure to showcase also the cyberpunk aesthetics of the new one as well. So. But the first one was more foundational, and it shows you that it was such a good story on its own that they wanted to reboot it and cash in on that again.
They had to do a total recall.
Total recall. Exactly. Exactly. Well, number 3 on our countdown is another more recent movie, but definitely one that is a cyberpunk icon. Ready Player One is not typically regarded as cyberpunk by hardcore fans, but Ready Player One has a ton of cyberpunk elements, like a general dystopian setting, an oppressive corporatization, virtual reality. What Ready Player One is feeling. The fact is that the future that's depicted in Ready Player One is feeling more and more real by the day. With VR tech on the rise and the global economy on the fall, a future full of third world countries hooked up to Oculus headsets to escape actually seems like a possibility. At least more so than some of the other stuff I've seen in some of the other cyberpunk dystopias, right? We're not gonna start, customizing our genitals with iPod updates anytime soon, right? I think it's more likely we're going to see Oculus Rifts in third world countries before then. Yeah.
TBD.
Plus that, TBD. Yeah. Plus they already have who can't love a movie with so many cameos, right? I mean, the cameos in that movie, let alone, I mean, you have to watch it a couple of times just to catch them all. And then even more recently, Ready Player 2 came out, which kind of explores along a lot of the same topics. So it's definitely a cyberpunk icon. It's definitely one that needs to be recognized on this list. And I know that Braun, I know you're a big VR fan, and I know that you've seen the tech grow rapidly. If VR were available on a mass scale, do you think that the future could look like Ready Player One?
I can totally see that. I could see that happening once it becomes readily available, and also that they improve the technology significantly. But I think that in our future, it's just going to be a part of everyday life and how we interact with the world. I think even like the augmented reality as part of these headsets, like I think that's going to come into play in just people's everyday lives. You'll see that people are going to be enhancing their video or visual feedback with things like VR, and that's to come. But you said Ready Player 2 has come out. What?
Yeah, Ready Player. Well, the book.
Yeah,
So,
the book.
Yeah, the book just came out. There was not a movie. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I read the book before I saw the movie, so I'm really excited. Yeah.
There you go.
On my list, guys. Maybe I'll read it.
You should go check it out. I think it came out this year or something else, but
it came out about a couple weeks ago, I think.
Yeah, I know they were doing an interview for it on the Daily Show, so it has to be something very, very recent. But it explores a lot of the same topics, and I think that it really kind of will dive even further into this topic, and who knows, maybe even be more cyberpunk.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never know. Well, number 2 on our list is one that we could not make this list and not mention. It's the legendary Akira. Tell us why Akira makes the list at number 2, Kev.
Yeah, the 1988 Japanese animated post-apocalyptic cyberpunk action film directed by Katsuhiro Otomo, produced by Raihel Suzuki and Shunzo Kato, and written by Otomo and Izo Hoshimoto, based on Otomo's 1982 manga of the same name. The film had a production budget of 700 million yen, making it the most expensive anime film at the time, until it was surpassed a year later by Kiki's Delivery Service. Set in a dystopian 2019, almost, Akira tells the story of Shitaro Kaneda, leader of biker gang, who childhood friend Tetsuo Shima acquired incredible telekinetic abilities after a motorcycle accident, eventually threatening an entire military complex amidst chaos and rebellion in the sprawling futuristic metropolis of Neo Tokyo. While most of the character designs and settings were adapted for the manga, the plot differs considerably and does not include much of the last half of the manga. The soundtrack, which draws heavily from the traditional Indonesian gamelan as well as Japanese no music, was composed by Shoji Yoshimito and performed by Geno Yamashigurumi. This is also thought to be a pivotal sort of piece in entertainment and culture in sort of introducing Japan to cyberpunk. Also, there's vaporwave's aesthetic. The list goes on the sort of culture impact that Akira has. But yeah, Braun Daughter, are you surprised at all that this is on the list?
Okay, well, first off, I want to do snaps for Kev for those pronunciations on point.
Thank you.
Like those are real good, and made sure he knew what he was talking about there. But I'm not personally surprised to see this one make the list. It was definitely when we were making this countdown, I was like, oh yeah, like Akira, like that would be one that was on there for sure.
Yeah.
What about you, Braun?
I'm in the same boat I'm on the same bike with both of you guys.
Oh, there you go.
The
I
same
want that
cyber
bike.
bike.
I want that bike. I don't know how I can get it or who needs to make it, but I want it. I've always wanted it ever since I was a boy.
It's a feeling. That's a vibe. I'm right there with you. It's a cool looking bike, and they make it look even cooler in the movie, and it looks even great in the image there. So,
Yeah.
But it's not as good as number 1 in the countdown. Number 1 in our countdown. You couldn't have a cyberpunk countdown if you didn't talk about fucking Blade Runner. So. Blade Runner is number 1, is the most cyberpunk icon, the biggest cyberpunk icon. Why? Because it literally shaped the idea of what cyberpunk even is. In fact, to most, Blade Runner is seen as the quintessential example of cyberpunk style and theme. It's no wonder why Cyberpunk 2077's name has a very similar feel to Blade Runner 2049. It really checks out all the cyberpunk boxes. It's in a near future urban dystopia where science and technology have progressed to a near dangerous level. Check. A terrible environmental degradation and societal collapse. Check. The line between human and machinery is blurry. Double check. Genetically engineered beings with augmented physical and mental capacity that are indeed more human than human, and then take on self-replicating and then take on a self-reflective capacity and set out to destroy their creators. Check, check, and check. Blade Runner setting is not the only thing that was ahead of its time, because it became the inspiration for cyberpunk icons like it to come. Kev, is there anything more cyberpunk than Blade Runner?
No, 1000% there is not. Yeah, we were doing this and I was like, yeah, Blade Runner has to be sort of the favorite for the number 1 here. If you listen to any of my music that's played here, there's a lot of influence from Blade Runner, so I'm a little bit impartial. And if you listen to a lot of science fiction soundtracks, even Tron, who was also on the list, Mass Effect as well, they'll tell you the composers, they were inspired by Blade Runner. So it's definitely, I don't think you can have Blade Runner on here without it being without it being number 1. I think if it's not number 1, it doesn't need to be on the list. I think not only does it check all the boxes, but it also influences all the other 9 that were on this top 10.
For real. For sure. Braun, anything more cyberpunk than Blade Runner?
Yeah, as they say, if you look up cyberpunk in the dictionary, Blade Runner.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's very true.
for real, for real.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
well, that about does it. Blade Runner took the top. So that'll about do it for us today, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We've hope you've enjoyed everything you see today. Remember, if you want more Geek Life, you can always follow any of us on any of our social medias. You can check me out on Twitter and Twitch at Roos_Bane. Where can they find you, Braun?
You could find me at Space Nymph on Twitch and Instagram.
And Kev, where can they find you?
Kevin Todd Jr. and Totally Awesome.
Yeah, and I don't know if we had any new followers join in recently. I didn't see any notifications go off, but totally awesome. Savage Patch Kid is still here with us. Ray, awesome Ray is here. Fattest Sax, Littlest Nelly, Gonzo, Jay Hazard or Jayzard, Sad Gaming. Oh my gosh, we got the whole crew in here, guys. Thank you guys so much for stopping by. Geek Life said, I love the line from the first one. I'm going to blow up this place and be home in time for cornflakes. Is that from Cyberpunk?
From Total Recall.
Total Recall. Oh man, that one aged out. Watch Dogs 2 is fantastic. Savage Patch Kids cheers on it. Is a big Watch Dogs fan. And definitely love some Oscar Isaac. Oscar Isaac is in everything. He's even in stuff that we're talking about in our top 10, and that's not planned content.
We're still talking about him.
We're still talking about him. We can't stop talking about Oscar Isaac.
As Jake would say, he's so hot right now.
He's so hot right now.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I made emojis. So now, anytime that you have a contest on the countdown, if you're a tier 3 level subscriber, you can buy a siren that you can just start flashing in the chat, which says that the countdown is contested. So definitely subscribe to us. If you subscribe on a level 2, you can get the Jake so hot right now emote, which is always fun. Always a fun one to do. He doesn't realize how much he says it, but we're gonna make sure that we get those emotes in there and remind him every time he does. So we can just get that Megatu. It's got little Megatu with the Supreme headband on it. It's a great emote. I'm proud of it. So.
Nice.
Also, if you didn't catch earlier, you can join our Discord. I think I still have it copy and pasted here, which I'll drop that in the chat. Join the Nerd Herd today. We have a bunch of different content creators in there. We're constantly streaming different stuff. You can catch my stream when it goes live. You can catch my stream when I'm having technical difficulties and I can explain what's going on. A lot of great shows today, guys. So that's really, thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. We do this all for you guys. So, I think that covers anything. Am I forgetting anything, guys?
No, I think we're good.
I think we're good. Well, big shout out to our moderator, Littlest Nelly, and Gonzo, also our host in chat today. Shout out to our video producer, Kate. We're going to be having a new producer coming on, producer Matt, who's going to be helping us out next week. So stay tuned for more that goes there. Thanks for sticking with us through all of our technical difficulties earlier today. I don't know what was going on with that, but we figured it out. So
made it work. Very cyberpunk of us. I don't know if I used that right.
Poggers, right?
Yeah.
I think I used that right too, right? Yeah.
Well, I guess with all the bugs, it was very cyberpunk of us. Am I right?
Yeah. There we go. We had to hack it, override it.
I was bashing. I was bashing the game.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Well, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in, and peace.